Yo, how you doing? Hey, long time no talk. Your boy's been busy out there on the show season. Literally from January through the end of March, show season kicks off. 7 more to go. If you guys want to see an update or any of these shows that we're going to be at, I'll put a link down in the description.
Right down there.
Today's show, by the way, sponsored by Ego Nets and Bags. Ego makes some of the coolest tackle box bag storage in the market today. You're going to love them. They also get into some really cool nets also. I'm going to put a link down in the description as well. Check out Ego Nets and Bags. Huge shout out to Ego Nets and Bags for sponsoring today's video. Today we're going to talk about what kind of jig head colors are best in what suitable times and environments. I'm going to tell you more. Roll the intro. So, in videos past, we talked about what sizes are best for what application, what size jig heads work for certain baits, and what size works for others. Today we're going to talk about color.
Now remember, don't kill the messenger here.
This is all my opinion and based off my own experience. There's a million ways to do the same exact thing. I recommend that you try out things for yourself. These are things that work for me, and I'm happy to share them. Now, when I'm selecting a jig head, whether it be a 3-inch to 6-inch style, something for bass, or even a small 1 to 2-inch style for crappie, perch, bluegill. What I'm typically doing is I'm selecting the head based off of the contrast of color. Now what I mean by that is you want to cover both spectrums of color. You want to choose a head that contrasts that color that you select of your bait the most. Now in this case, I have a gold bling 3-inch leecher.
Focus. Ooh.
You got a lot of shine in this bait, but overall, you're talking about more of the higher end of the spectrum. So when I think of high end of the spectrum, I'm thinking like clear and white, way up here. When I'm thinking darker or low end of the spectrum, I'm thinking more black colors. So consider that wave. You got dark over here and light over here and every color in between. I'd say that this is closer to the lighter end of the spectrum. It's kind of yellowy overall. If you were to combine all the colors involved in this bait and find the median color, probably going to be closer to the higher end of that spectrum versus the lower end, right? So as a result, what I like to do is choose a head that would contrast it most. So if we're at the higher end of the spectrum with this color, you want something with the lower end of the spectrum on your head. So in this particular case, with a gold bling leecher at 3 inches long, I'm choosing a 1/4 ounce head in black. Just like that.
Oh, baby.
Also, you'll notice that the heads also have different color eyes. This particular black head has a gold eye, which even marries along with that contrast, and it pairs really well with a gold style bait. Now, why do I cover the entire color spectrum when selecting a head and a bait? Remember, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get that fish to see this bait, and if they're hungry or they're reactive, they're definitely going to strike at it. So instead of just dropping a bait on their head, it's all the same color, you've increased your chances by giving them kind of the both spectrums of color. So if it's real dark and dirty and dingy at the bottom, you have a better chance of that fish seeing the color if you're giving them both one on the light end and one on the dark end of the spectrum.
Does that make sense?
So in other words, what I typically would not do 9 times out of 10,
My opinion.
I just spit all over the screen, is I wouldn't throw like a white head or even a chartreuse head on this. Increase your chances, cover both ends of the color spectrum. Here's a couple examples of some baits that I did the contrasting color with. We got a black and blue sweeper with a white head, and we have a pink with a chartreuse head. Now, keep in mind, I'd probably say the chartreuse is much more on the higher end of the spectrum, where the pink tends to be closer towards the end. They're maybe not as dramatic of a difference in contrasting color, but they're still contrasting. The red eye, the pink body, it kind of goes real well together. I hope that makes sense. Something that I've done in the past as well, and it works really good, because it already has the contrasting colors in the bait, is say for example, you have a bait much like this Alien Blood 6-stick. Now the base color of that bait right there is a blue, obviously, but if you'll notice, you have like little flakes of red in there and even a lighter blue or silver. So what I'll do is I'll accent that other end of the spectrum color that's already in the bait with that same color. In this case, I would throw a red head on there and brings out a little bit of that red flake that's accented in the bait itself. That's worked pretty good for me in the past. Here's another example of the same thing. This is a King Kermit paddle tail, black flake, chartreuse body. I'd probably throw a black head on there. Now you have a contrast in the bait itself, and it accents the flake that's already in the bait, if that makes sense. Another thing that plays a huge part in selecting the proper color is the clarity of the water. Remember, fish have an extra lens in their eye. It's almost like us wearing a UV or a polarized lens all the time. So they have the advantage of UV visibility, and they also see a little bit better in darker situations. So traditionally speaking, you're gonna use a darker color head in a darker colored water situation. Being that the soft plastic portion of the bait is the majority of the bait, I'm using that is the darker color and then accenting it with a lighter head. But I have had some really good days where I'm fishing dark color heads with a lighter color body in dark water situations. Now, light water situations, clear water, where you can literally see maybe 10 feet down and maybe even more, I like to go with something like a pink or a chartreuse. Even a white is really good. Now, we have a bunch of options too that give you the ability to mix and match, and again, that covers different ends of the spectrum. You'll notice that the chartreuse and orange for darker color water situations and chartreuse for more of the lighter water situations. Now again, don't kill me, I know. At the end of the day, if you're able to get it in front of a fish, it doesn't matter what color stain the water is, they're gonna hit it if they're hungry, right? So yes, you will catch fish on either colors. There's always that variable where they'll hit pretty much anything if you have a pile right in front of you and they're hungry. So again, dark water, I'm going black, I'm going maybe blood reds or even an unpainted head. Even oranges are great. And the lighter, clear water, I'm going with more white, chartreuse, pinks, even a lime truce color. Another thing that I think about too when determining the best head for the bait is gonna be the sun.
What do you mean by that, Rick?
Well, what I mean by that is, in many cases, you can lever the power of the sun to gain more attractiveness to the bait.
Now, how would you do that?
Power of the bling. So you get the point, right? When it's real sunny, especially in clear water situations where you're not having to battle the mud or the stain of the water, lever the power of the sun to hit the head and get a little more sparkle, aka attractiveness, to your bait. I will give you a little secret too that I found to be true. In the Midwest, we get ice in the winter months, obviously. And obviously with ice, what it's doing is it's covering the top layer of the lake. So the lake's not getting beat up by the wind and any reasoning for really mixing and stirring that water. The only thing that's really doing any of the stirring is the current that's underneath that body of water if it was an old, say, river or something. So by not having to contend with the wind and other elements with the protection of the ice, the water tends, when it has ice on it, to get a lot more clearer. So even in the winter months, when the sun isn't able to penetrate the ice, I like to use, even in deep water situations where it's darker, the shiny, blingier baits. Metallic gold, metallic silver. There are a plethora of other jig head options out there, including, say, big eye jig head, and even different ones that look like raptor eyes or cat eye style heads. There's a million different ways you can go with this, right? I just gave you some options of the products that we manufacture here and what I like to use on a regular basis. If you're looking to stock up on some jig heads, I'm gonna put that link down in the description below. We got a ton of options and a ton of different sizes for you to choose from, including something like these underspins where it takes like a regular big eye jig head and it adds a little willow leaf blade there. Those are great for moving style baits.
Maybe not so much jigging style baits.
Where you're literally casting it out and you're retrieving that back in. Maybe a paddle tail or some of our mini swimmers. A bait that has a propeller on the back, basically, so that when you're casting and retrieving, it's doing the work for you as you're just keeping it pedaling in. A jigging style bait, it kind of is just gonna give it a little extra flash. Hey, it might work, but it's not really doing its intention of spinning that blade as you're bringing it in. Hey, do me a favor and comment below jig heads. Hey, that helps us out, thanks. I know that was a short one today and I appreciate you watching along. I hope it was helpful to you. If it was, share along below. If you have any tips or tricks that you wish to add to this content, we want to hear about it. If you want to check out the video where I cover different jig head sizes, you can click that right up here. If you want to check out the playlist for other how-to videos, click that there. If you wish to subscribe, you can do so by clicking that little circle right over there. Be sure to smash that thumbs up and ring that notification bell so you're getting all them juicy notifications. Share it with your favorite friend and we will see you on the next one. Woo!